Boom! Good afternoon, gamers, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of Games with Dave. Joining me today is Brian Colin, the founder of Creature Curation, a company that specializes in crafting awesome gaming products, such as the one you may have heard of. It's on the hats here, Vast Grimm. Brian is currently running a Kickstarter with his collaboration partner, Duncan Hall. I believe I've got that right. And you can click on the link in the description to back it, but it's called Plunderlust, which is a trading card game in which players take on the role of plunderers and their crew of raiders on a quest to plunder as much as they possibly can from things like wrecked starships and space stations. It funded in exactly 66 minutes and 6 seconds, which I think is just very befitting of a Mork Borg compatible card game compatible with a Mork Borg. Yeah, I know what I'm trying to say. I'm already going off the rails. Welcome to the show, my friend. I'm so glad to finally get you on after having to delay our last convo.
Thanks so much for having me, Dave. And it's good to get to hang out with you and see you again, especially after getting to meet in person just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, we got to meet at Granite State Comic-Con, and I had the pleasure of playing Vast Grimm for the very first time. And dude, it is such an awesome system. I can't remember my character's name right now. And oh wow, hey, Bill McDougal's in there. He's like, hey, it's you. I played with you at Granite State.
Yes, awesome, very good.
But yeah, I think that is such a cool game. I had a pet worm, which Bill and company didn't know about, that I could have let out. And then I captured another worm at the end of the game, and I've got 2 little baby worms in canisters that I can now, I don't know if we want to go into the exact way I fed my worm on air.
That's totally up to you, you know.
I don't care. I fed it a puppy.
Yes.
To sustain my pet dog. I fed to my worm to sustain it, which I thought was hilariously morbid and fantastic.
Everybody has terrible backstories in the game. I mean, especially with the randomly generated ones and doing it that way. There's all sorts of stuff to really get you into the dark, horrible setting that is Vast Grimm. And also, Zorin is in the comments as well. Thanks for joining.
I was just going to pop that up. One of the cool things, have you ever used StreamYard?
I have, yes.
Okay, so you can pop things up like.
Yes, I always forget though while I'm actually talking on it. I always forget to click on the comments. So yeah, I love StreamYard. I think it's a super easy and intuitive tool for being able to chat with folks and share what you're working on.
It is so much better. I was using Streamlabs before.
Uh-huh.
And I had a stream and I had my starting soon screen going, and I hadn't muted all the microphones and didn't realize it. And we were being so obnoxious. And I watched it later and I was just like, oh my God, no. I hope no one was sitting there watching it. You'll have to go back and watch all 96 videos
to figure out which one
which one it is, because I'm not telling.
I always had issues with OBS because I'm on a Mac, and it always had trouble when trying to have multiple audio inputs. And it was just and I could never, because I didn't do it regularly enough, I'd forget between each session, or even when I put down, like, this is how you do it. I'd always mess up. Oh, your name was Valback Gridor.
That's right. Wow.
I love that you took notes.
Callback.
Yeah. Because
I never take notes. I am like the bane of GMs out there everywhere. They'll be like, what did we do last time? Well, we played Vast Grimm.
I rolled dice. I think I hit something.
Yeah. I got this cool worm. So one question I always ask everybody on the show when they first come on is, what was the big RPG that got you into RPGs?
The big one that got me in was the red box of D&D, because I started playing when I was in 4th grade, and I'm 48. But then all through high school, I played a lot of D&D. One of my other friends named Dave, he ran a lot of Palladium games, so I also played like a lot of Rifts and a lot of TMNT. Played a little Call of Cthulhu in high school, and then like World of Darkness, like Vampire, came out when I was in high school, so we started playing that towards the tail end of it as well. And then I transitioned into Fate, and then played little 5e and then discovered Morkborg. So like I've played a wide range of games and I've been a forever DM. And for the longest time, like in college and after post college, I was primarily using Fate for a lot of stuff because I was really more narrative focused in the games that I was running.
Nice. Well, you could definitely tell that with Vast Grimm of how it plays out. I love it, dude. It's so much fun. I can't wait to play again. And I'll definitely be finding your table at PAX Unplugged. That's for
Excellent.
sure.
Well, and I personally won't be running any games at PAX Unplugged. I will be
Well,
behind the
I'm
booth.
out of here then. If you're not running games, then
Um, there may be something in the evening afterwards, but PAX is usually it's getting closer to the lines of Gen Con where there's always some sort of event in the evening afterwards that either a dinner with certain people or backer kit Kickstarter parties, things like that and other events that usually I end up not running games in the evening after hustling the booth all day. But
that's crazy.
yeah.
Well, if you need a break from the booth, man, I will help you out.
Thanks.
So.
And my son will be going there too, and he'll be working the booth. But I like being able to share what I'm working on with people and seeing people's excitement about it, because then that keeps me energized till as I'm working on the new stuff and the next show. It's cool to get to be around people that are excited about the weird, bizarre crap that I'm making.
It is, and like that's kind of what keeps me going. For the longest time, I was sitting at like 60 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of nowhere, I got like this slew, and I'm like, wow, people actually like listening to me talk.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
awesome.
all right, cool. I'll keep on talking then.
That's right.
So I saw a really cool thing about Vast Grimm, that it was inspired by a sculpture that you made called the Warhound or
Yes.
Warhound.
Well, and it really started. My friend Ross, who's the co-creator of the game, he ran Morkborg for my Atlanta crew,
Nice.
and because our other friend Ken, he had backed the original Kickstarter and gave Ross a copy of the book, and when he ran it, that's what then inspired me to sculpt that Warhound. And then from there, it's like, hey, you want to do a sci-fi hack of Morkborg? And he was like, sure. And then we started working on it very quickly.
Nice. I saw that sculpture and I'm like, dude, that thing is nuts.
Look
dude,
up.
that is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on the wall because I got to keep it somewhere until it sells, which it will one of these days.
Well, we're going to have to talk because I love that thing. And I would love to have that, like, as you walked into my apartment, have people greeted with the Warhound. And
and it's awesome. Like the Turgis worm that's on the cover that was like this big. That one sold before. Like one of my sculptor collectors reached out to me when I was just kind of sharing it with folks, photos of it. They reached out to me to see if it was available before I'd even thought about putting it up for sale.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe no one's grabbed the Warhound yet.
I know.
That thing is like nightmare fuel. Like,
yes. And it's sweet too. I like early on in the early days of Vast Grimm, in Discord, some of the people were talking about doing a Pigs in Space version, which now there's like a Pork in the Void. But I took my Pigs in Space toys from back in the 90s when shoot, I can't remember the name of the company. They were out of Maryland though. They made all the Muppets toys, and I put all the Pigs in Space characters like coming out of like the Warhound was eating the Pigs in Space, and photographed all that, and that was fun.
That's great. I'm gonna have to see those because that sounds pretty awesome. So, pardon me, I had to take a drink as well. Really, the big thing we're here to talk about is you kind of took the mixing bowl with Vast Grimm, mixed it up, and out came a really cool tabletop card game called Plunderlust.
Well, and with that, Duncan, who you mentioned earlier, he had created a card game called 7-7, which was a Morkborg card game. And he had been involved in a game jam that, he had been involved in a game jam that I had done for Vast Grimm. And when I went to his itch page to see other stuff that he had done, he had the 7-7 Morkborg card game. And so I bought that and downloaded it and did the print and play. started playing that with my kids and my wife. And after we had played it a few times, I was like, this is fun. And like, I'm not really a card game person. I've always been an RPG person. We do a lot of board games just because it's faster and easier a lot of times than getting everybody together for an RPG. But I was like, he's got a third-party license, so I could do it myself. But I was like, why not reach out to Duncan and see if he'd want to do it? Because he was already a fan of Vast Grimm, and he's the creator of it. So I might as well, if we're make money off of it, might as well make sure that he makes money off of it too. So then when I reached out to him, he was completely on board. He knew that, and then Wyatt, my son, and I had talked about some different things we wanted to add to the mechanics a little bit and to tweak it to make sure that it was very Vast Grimm. It was very Grimmy and not didn't feel like Morkborg. And then I knew that I wanted to have a separate deck for each of the Space Raider factions that are in my Space Raiders book for the RPG side. So I wanted to continue the lore of the Vast Grimm universe and put it into the Plunderlust game. And Duncan just ran with it. He's done an incredible job. He took what was there and kept adding to it. And then we've been just play testing back and forth, and he's been play testing, and I've been play testing with the family. Yeah.
Crazy. Like,
yes.
And the art is crazy on these cards. Did you
Thanks.
do all the art?
I do. Yes. Nice. I do all the art and all the graphic design. And then, do all the Kickstarter.
I've got to say, this one particular card here, the Cacophonous Cassette, dragged me right back to like the 1980s, oddly enough, and having my Walkman and bebopping around downtown Portland, Maine.
That's fantastic. Well, and that was using a real photograph of Vast Grimm cassettes that we had made. That were
nice.
My friend Chris did space synth music, and then the J card sleeve inside, one side's a map, the other side's an adventure. So those are like real photographs that I then bashed up in an Affinity Photo.
Wow, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, I try to collage everything that I do, like photographs of real 3-dimensional things, along with digital art that I do, or stock photos that I buy, and then bashing that and then overlaying that with I don't know, random sculptures that I make, or spaceships, or like space stations that are just, my fingers can't do it. I can't do it.
Like, you got it. You got them.
Yep.
I do the same thing, trying to point over a shoulder to something. Yep. And I'm like, no, that's not working. Oh, man. So there is so much going on with this Kickstarter. I mean, there's dice, there's decks, there's play mats. It is absolutely insane what people can get with this Kickstarter. I feel like literally the only thing left out is a derelict wreck to plunder.
Yes.
It's like, and to really kind of play off that, what are the different tiers, if you want to do a quick run through for folks that may be sitting out there just clicking on this randomly and saying, sure, what is this Plunderlust?
Well, so you really only need one deck to play, and this is it's an expandable card game, but it's not collectible in the sense that you don't know what you're getting, because I wanted to make sure that when somebody buys something, they don't have to keep spending money and hope, and that if they spent way more money than somebody else, their deck is going to be so much better. I didn't want to have it be a financial thing, or I wanted to make sure everybody can afford to play. So each player needs their own deck. You can play solo with just one, and that's the starting pledge level. And that's really all you need. All the other stuff is because I like to have all the things, right? So yes. I want to make stuff that I want to have. So the next one is like solo mode, where you then can get a playmat as well. You can pick out whichever deck you want. You can pick out whichever playmat, and there's playmat themed to go with each of the Space Raider factions. So it's like, you know what? I'm really into the Jolly Dodgers. These are going to be, that's my faction. Or I'm really into the Reapers. That's my faction. I really wanted to make sure that that you could match it how you want to. There's also a 2-player starter set, which was a good discussion that I had. You met Doug at Granite State.
Yep.
From Victory Condition. He and I were talking there about a 2-player starter set. So it's got 2 different decks. It's got punch board tracking tokens for hit points, volts, which are like the batteries that you use, and also credits that you can spend on things. And it has paper play mats, and a rules book, and a set of polyhedral dice. And so, like, trying to make something that's super easy and convenient, packaged well, that, if you just want to play with a friend, that's all you need. And it comes with 2 specific decks that are really good at battling each other. They kind of have certain things that work well off of each other. Then there's the next one has a fancier version of that set where it's got play mats for both people. We've got a pledge where you can get just all 7 of the decks if you just want to have the decks, because, I don't know, I've got plenty of dice at home. I don't really need more polyhedral dice, right? You do need a set of polyhedrals to play this because it is RPG inspired and has elements from RPG, the Vast Grimm RPG in it. We also have a retailer tier because I love being retail friendly. I want stores to be able to pick up my stuff and sell it well and make sure that it looks great on their shelves, and give them a deeper discount than they normally would get waiting for it, because I know putting their money out ahead of time is a risk for them. So if I can make it more worth their while, I want to. We also have a Plunderer one. I created a long box. This is where I'm just going to step back here for a second.
Can still hear you though, so that's good.
So this is like the gummy box, the white box of what the long box will look like.
Nice.
Before it gets printed on. So that can hold 7 decks. Can also hold the dice booster box, and even more. And it can even hold sleeved cards as well.
Very cool.
So that's in some of the higher levels. You get more play mats or no play mats and all the decks and that. There's lots of different ways to mix and match. And I've got a crazy extra add-on that we've sold. I think we've done 5 out of the 10 so far, where you can be a card in the game, where you send me a photo of yourself. I destroy you in the computer and make you all grim you all up, and then you'll be a card. Not only that, but everybody who back pledges for the campaign will get a foil version of that card. And you'll get a special version where on the back, I will do a custom illustration on the back of it.
So cool.
Yeah.
I wish I weren't trying to invest everything into like doing stuff, because that would be the coolest thing in the world to be on a Plunderlust card. It's like, oh man. As Ren actually says, I'll pop it up. Seems I actually saw it. I totally missed that tier showing up in the game. So
yeah. So I wanted to make that as a separate add-on, so it wasn't locked into a certain tier. So I didn't if somebody just wanted to get like 2 decks or the starter set and wanted to be in it, I wanted them to be able to be in that. I didn't want somebody to have to buy like the big all-in tier and then throw another $300 on top of it, because I thought that was, that's like really like gouging somebody if that's not what they wanted.
Yeah, that can kind of kill me when like a Kickstarter will do that. It's like, oh, I'm going to spend 200, but it's 500 if you want to do this. And I'll be like, I've got to do it. And we're not eating anything other than ramen for the next month.
Right. Thank you, Frederick. Frederick said they bought everything else Vast Grimm. Might as well buy this too.
Well, I'm going to give you some competition compacts, Frederick, because this is like my main thing, is to stockpile on everything I can get my hands on there. So
excellent. And by then I'll have 4 more books.
Oh, isn't that convenient?
I was hoping I'd have them for Gamehole, but they're going to be getting to me hopefully mid-November, and then I'll have to pack them all up and ship them all out.
4 more books. Oh man. Yeah, I'm going to have to like enter my kids into like indentured servitude somewhere.
No, the books aren't worth it. I mean,
I think they are. I would argue that point with you. Like, I had so much fun with Bill, and I'm drawing a blank on the other gentleman's name, and he'll probably be able to tell me. But yeah, I had so much fun playing the game of just like the grimmy griminess of it. I was just like, this is so much fun.
Thank you.
But back to this. So there, you brought up there are 7 decks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were stretch goals, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so
to the 7 decks.
Like, I always wanted there to be 7, right? But if I put 7 in, there's a lot of psychology to Kickstarter. And if I put 7 in, it would have had to be at least a $20,000 goal for the campaign. So we did it where there could be the 2 decks plus the deck I had already printed, because I printed the Revenant's deck as proof of concept to get it out in front of the playtesters, get it in front of reviewers, that sort of thing. And so I set the goal at the 5,000 at the bare minimum we'd need to print those. And then kept unlocking stretch goals of additional decks, knowing that's what I'd have to hit to be able to afford to print them. So like, we're almost at 28,000, which is amazing, but we just recently hit that profit area where Duncan and I start to get paid off of it, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't, if I set it at 20,000 and people came to it the first day and they saw it was only at $3,000, they're not going to have the confidence that it's going to succeed and fund if it gets funded sooner. And I also would have been happy with just being able to print 2 or 3 decks and just do that if we had to. We'd get people playing and then continue to grow the people that are excited about the game over time, and then release the other decks if we needed to.
Nice. I think it's awesome that there are all 7 decks. My favorite, which I was unaware of, was the Killer Clowns.
Yes, and that's highly influenced by popular culture.
I can't imagine what. And right. Now, knowing Vast Grimm, I'm imagining these particular clowns are immensely more vicious, I guess would be a...
They are, and it's funny because like right now I'm writing. So each of these were in the Space Raiders book, but only a little hint of them. Right? It said who the different members of that Space Raider faction were. Some of the things, like they have balloon animals that are filled with toxins. Things like that.
So cool.
It's goofy, like squirting bow ties and stuff. But I'm actually working on building that out more right now as part of my Patreon rewards of Vast Grimm stuff. I'm working out their starship. This isn't in the card game, but their starship is called the Giggle Bus, because it's like one of the ships in the game is a bus, a butt ugly starship, and they conjoined 2 of them together, and it's kind of like a traveling circus or carnival. And so I'm writing that up right now, that's actually what I've been doing this morning. So
the 3 rings of death. It's like, I just picture like there's no circus here. It's just nuts. And I can't wait. I'm going to have to grab them. I'm picking up a weird ring. Are you picking up a ring?
I am not.
Yeah, weird. Maybe my ears are just ringing because I'm laughing so much or something. I don't know. So,
got a question from Frederick in the comments. Do you mind if I address that?
I can pop that up here.
Awesome.
Bam. Brian, have you learned anything about pricing Kickstarters when it comes to printing costs?
Yes, I price them all. I get estimates all in advance so that I know what my goals have to be. Because I've been doing graphic design forever and printing and manufacturing, I usually have a good idea as to what I'm looking for. Like that's how I was able to get like white samples of the product before going to Kickstarter, so that I could get that spec'd out with printers, find out what the whole cost was going to be, factor in what Kickstarter is going to charge, factor in what my marketing and advertising budget will hopefully be, and try and roll that all in so that I'm not losing money on the project. Because this is my full-time job. I need to try and be profitable about it so I can still have like the roof over my head and all that good stuff.
All right. Boom. I figured out what the ringing was. My little desk fan that I have here was going crazy, and I lifted my headphones up and I could still hear the ringing, and I was like,
giving you the angry
that's not a good sign. Yeah, apparently. So that's off. So it doesn't, I didn't know if it was coming through the mic or anything. So, and now I hear a choo-choo train.
We have we've got a railroad track right behind our house. So, and
that's
it cuts right to a downtown square. So they blow their horn to let people know not to cross, even though the comes down.
Very cool. That's got to be kind of weird late at night when you hear the horns, or don't you hear it anymore?
We've been here for so long. Yeah. I just don't hear anything. And if my snoring won't wake me up, that's not going to wake me up.
My snoring doesn't wake me up. It wakes everybody else up. That's
Yeah.
um so one thing that I saw is this game is playable in 45 minutes.
Yeah, once you get to know the rules, like
Yeah.
if you're learning the rules, it's probably going to take an hour and 15, depending on how the decks are built or like how the decks are shuffled. I've had some games that, like, my son has beat me in like record time, and then I've had some where it drags out to like an hour and 15, depending on how things are built. But that's kind of an average. Yes,
You always
this
want to
will
be a hat
convert you to
guy.
be a hat person, right?
That's right. Where Brian brainwashed me, and now I'm working on bringing more people into the
That's what the hat does. It infects you. Like, once you put it on your head, you're in.
You're done. You're done for. Now, does the 45 minutes still hold true if you've got a 7-player game going on,
No,
or
that starts to grow a bit at that point. And I've only done 3 to 4 people so far, so I haven't gotten fully up to 7. But also, there's a mechanic. Once somebody dies, all the monsters that were in the location where the person died then move to the person to your right, I believe. So, like, once one person goes down, it's gonna start having a kind of a domino effect almost.
that's so cool and brutal. That's kind of mean. I like
I
it.
mean, life is brutal in the grim dying universe.
Yeah, it is. We learned that firsthand, didn't we, Bill? um, oh boy, I feel like I've taken this way off the rails already with talking about trains and everything else,
I
but
mean, there are no rails. We're just two guys having a chat, right?
yeah.
Talk about anything.
Well, it's funny because I used to structure everything and try to be
Mhm.
so organized. And I had a couple of my friends that are like, dude, what are you doing?
It's
And I'm
like
like, what do
prepping
you
for a game,
mean?
right? The more you
Yeah.
prep, the less it's going to stay on track.
Yeah. And I just make talking points now. Like
Yep.
I've got this list hanging off my camera. And because I used to have structured questions, and and my friends were like, dude, you sit there like, hi, what would you like to do with Plunderlust? And I
Oh,
watched
like
a few of my older videos and they were absolutely right. And I'm like, wow, that really isn't me.
right,
And now this is what I do now. I do just talking points and shoot the breeze with people and see where it goes. So,
as we
and
should.
it's way more fun that way, I think.
Oh,
So,
totally. Yeah. Like, I've seen
um,
some interviews where they actually send the questions ahead of time, and it's like, if you know the questions ahead of time, you're gonna feel like, I don't know, it's gonna come across really rehearsed and
robotic.
robotic, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, and not robotic in the emo bot fun sort of way.
No. um, I just kind of lost where was I going here? I'm just going to say to hell with this list in a minute because yeah, well,
We
if
have
I
to
do
start
that,
this
the
game.
camera is going to go with it because I've got it taped to the base of the camera, and you would
Perfect.
just see this like flipping image and then static. So how cool was it? I like the funding in 66 minutes and 6 seconds.
Right?
I The fact that Vast Grimm is a Morkborg inspired game, and the fact that it funded in that time is so fitting.
Right.
Like
Oh,
it,
absolutely. And like, I didn't even see it. I was getting ready because I was like taking screenshots as we go, trying to do the hour mark, try and make sure you do a screenshot when it funds. And when I did the screenshot and it had the date, like the time and date stamp on it, I was like, huh, an hour and 6 minutes. That's pretty good. Just over an hour. And then I was like, wait, an hour is 60 minutes. Wait, 6 minutes. Oh, yes. And then,
it's so great. Um, yeah, I saw that on there. And how quick did you knock down the stretch goals to get all 7 decks unlocked?
pretty quickly. My brain, I'd have to go. Let me look at the updates real quick because I've only done one update. I don't like to do a lot of updates on Kickstarter because for some reason, when you do that, it seems like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I forgot, I backed this. Maybe I should drop my pledge now." So I tend to just do updates in the comments, and then I update in Discord.
Then they never see you coming until the card gets charged.
Well, I mean, they send out the email like the last 48
No, I
hours.
know. I'm just being a wise guy because,
So
dude, I would forget to send out freaking updates because that's why I'm trying to start like an email newsletter for the whole Games with Dave thing. And I'm like, dude, if I do it, I'm gonna like do something really cool, get like 200 subscribers, and then forget to send out an email.
Well, it's better to send too few than too many, I think, because the
Yeah.
number of people that back out of newsletters is the percentage rate isn't high, but there's still a fair number that back out. In 24 hours, we unlocked all but one of the decks.
Crazy.
So we were plugging along really well, which was awesome. Because I didn't know exactly. You never know how things are going to go or how things are going to resonate with folks. So I was super excited about that. I'm hopeful that we can hit the 35,000 stretch goal because that puts these printed tabs in the long box. And then I've got some even some other exciting stretch goals in the future. So I'm hoping we get there and then continue going past that as well.
That would be very cool because you have got. I'm scrolling through the Kickstarter trying to get back up to the top, so I don't look like a dummy. Yeah, 18 days to go. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to be wrong and have you be like, no, it's 8.
And hopefully I'll while at Gamehole, hopefully I'll introduce it to more people. Maybe get some other people play testing. Playing the one deck that I have, and get some folks excited about that too.
Well, you do. You're very good at getting people like excited for the game. Like, I think it's just your personality.
I mean, I love what I do, so it's hard to not be, have that enthusiasm be infectious with the other people that I'm interacting with.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I totally get it. Like, I went around I almost said Gamehole. Jeez, at Granite State in that game room, like, hey, I'm Dave from Games with Dave. You want to do an interview? And I felt like I scared a couple of people because I was just so like Kermit the Frog, like, whoa.
Yep. But see, at least we had already talked ahead of time, so you couldn't scare me.
Yeah. Yep. You would actually approach me, which rarely happens. And I'm like, I was actually nervous about reaching out to you, which is funny. Like,
right? Because I'm super I
chill.
feel like I'm
Like,
very approachable.
yeah, you are. And like, I just never met you. And then you're like, yeah, I'm going to be at Granite State. And I'm like, sweet. And then we met and I'm like, wow, he's even cooler than I thought. And
well, thank you.
And like, yeah, like I feel like we just hit it right off within like the first 2 minutes of shooting the shizzle.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah, let me see. I've gone through all this stuff. Oh, what are the different card types that folks will find in this amazing game?
Yes. So there's a handful, and each deck is different in the cards that they have. There's only one type of card that's common throughout, where you may have repetitive cards in the 7 decks, and that's the Mercs. And Mercs are exactly like Mercs are. They're hireable, and they can either be played to your own crew as scum, or they can be played as monsters against the person that you're fighting against. And some of those Merc cards overlap because I can't remember exactly how many we have, but there's 4 different types in each deck. And so some deck will have these 4, some deck will have these 4, and they overlap a little bit. But then you have in your deck, you have your scum. Your scum are the people that are part of your specific Space Raider faction. And in each deck, you only have one of each of those because they're like an individual, right? They're like Trash Mouth Terry. You couldn't have 2 Trash Mouth Terrys because there's only one of them. And then you also play as a character as well. There's locations, and each deck has different locations because they're different on where you're exploring and where you can go. You go to find loot, to fight monsters. It's kind of like when you play a location card, you're then exploring that part of the dungeon, right? And the person that you're playing against plays monsters because they fill the dungeon with your threats. And speaking of monsters, there's monster cards. Along with monsters, each deck has 2 of the same boss monster. Because one of the ways to win is to defeat a boss monster. The other way to win is just to kind of outlive the other player. We have favors in the game, which are kind of like things in the RPG. It's like little one-time use things that can really do big things to kind of influence the direction of the game. And then you have equipment, anything from armor to weapons to random things like King Saul's finger or things like that, where that's something that you as the player can use because you're part of your crew. Those are items that you use since you don't have a card of your own. Whereas like Scum would have specific weapons and things and armor already on them.
I want to pop Zrin's question up here. How much, and he says, to use MTG terminology, interaction is in the game, doing things when it's not your turn and interfering with other players on their turn, for instance.
So it goes and back and forth, and you'll have to forgive me only because I've never really played Magic. I tried one or two times, and it never really clicked in my brain. So each round, like if it's my turn, I'm going to draw up my cards. I'm going to play a location. I'm going to explore, and I'm going to roll to see how many credits I'll end up getting from exploring. That same value of credits, the other player plays that much in monsters or mercs against me. So that's where the kind of back and forth on an individual's turn is, so that when I then move into the fight phase, I'm rolling to attack, and if I miss, the other player rolls the damage for the monsters that they've put in. So there's back and forth in each person's turn in both the explore phase, where they're putting down monsters for lurking, and then when during the fighting, if I miss when I fight, the other player rolls the damage. There are also some certain cards that can be played, like some of the favors can be played that would no, that can't be played on the other person's turn. Sorry. And then it switches to the other person, and they can do the same thing. If that made sense.
It made sense.
And we do have on the Kickstarter, there's a link to download the rough draft of the rule book. I've already seen a couple of typos. I'm going to add a few more pages with example playthroughs, but at least that kind of gives you a start to the rules. The monsters are the main meat of the other players. Yes.
Very cool. Yeah, it's funny that Magic's been brought up a couple of times, and you said you didn't want to make this like Magic where the guy with the most money could win. I hate to admit it, but I was that guy.
Oh, well, no, I totally get it. Like, so I had never really played CCGs, and then my kids and I started when Lorcana first came out, and like the whole FOMO, and like we started getting a lot really early on, and then I just realized that it was just like going to events at local stores, and the people that had the bigger jobs and could afford all the stuff, their deck's gonna blow mine out of the water. And well, it also helps that they know like all the terminology and know all the rules and know what the best combos of building a deck is going to be. But I generally I don't want a game to be classist. And in the same way, like RPGs, all you need is one book and a set of dice and a piece of paper and a pencil, or shit, you don't even need the book usually. You just need a piece of paper and a pencil and some dice.
Make some shit up and play.
Right.
It's like, well, see, it's funny because my deck building with Magic was more reactionary because of I would go and I'd play with like a little cheap ass deck that I had put together, and I'd be dead in 30 seconds. And I was like, all right, well, fight fire with fire. And then we got into selling cards. Back in December of last year, we were selling through one of the card vending sites. Sure. And it made me actually loathe Magic the Gathering because, like, I don't know how to really explain it properly, I guess. So it was dumb to bring it up. But, like, it got to the point where we were selling a lot of it, but still losing money. Because at least with Wizards, I can't buy stuff at wholesale. I had to find someone that sold close to wholesale. And then buy that way. And then you've got, we were using a site called TCG Player. Yeah. Man, and you have these people that will price it as low as they can.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I would try to get like the market value for it, but I couldn't and then I'd have to price it way down. And I was just like,
doesn't sound like a lucrative.
Over here I've got a bookshelf now, but we had this big metal peg shelf here. I'll see if I can eh, with my printer and everything on it. And that was a shelf with about 40,000 cards on it that I am so happy it's not in my house anymore.
Yep.
I
That's
they've
a
all
lot.
gone those shelves have all gone to the basement now for when we start really doing stuff with the fulfillment business.
Nice. Awesome.
So and they're full of boxes and stuff like they should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
Hey, Zren, yes, I think that is the way to go where you get people that are brand new to the game to Magic and start playing that way. Seems like it'd be a lot less, a lot easier to get in together.
yes. And then what you do is you pool your cards together. If you find that one guy that really knows the rules really well,
Hmm.
and like I'm being a total snarky, not snarky, but a wise ass of like, here, take my better cards and go smash that player over there that's got the $2,000 deck.
Nice.
Because it is the level of, to me at least, and it's what I really like about Plunderlust is how overpriced some cards are. Like there are lands in Magic that to get them in playable condition can be like thousands of dollars.
Sure. And that's
And
one of
it's
the
like,
things like that I insured. Like you see the stretch goals where we have foil cards of specific
yep,
cards. Those cards, the regular ones are in certain decks. So the only thing that makes those special is that they're shiny. It's not something that isn't accessible or available to somebody else.
yeah. And that's great that I love that. And I'm looking at the Become a Raider. Now I see it. I hadn't scrolled down far enough. Um, dude, this stuff is so cool. And like
Thanks.
I love your art style. Like I'm looking at the playmat for the don't it's the one playmat thing on there for the image. I'm trying to remember the faction. Don't tell me because I know I should know this by now. I've looked at this so many times.
There's 7
It,
factions. You've got a 1 in 7 chance of getting it right.
I know, but it's just remembering the name that I'm
So
just like,
here's a clue. If you click on the playmats button on the side and you scroll down, it'll have the name under each faction.
well, not that you really told me that, but it was the gray scrolls that I was thinking of.
That's
Like just the vibe that these give off is like that makes me like the that mat in particular makes me think of like a like punk rock universe, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, yes, and yes, this has been the RPG has been called Guardians of the Galaxy thrown into into an alien movie.
That's a pretty good analogy
Yep,
of yeah. And I could just see like, Peter Quill having
having a
like
worm in
an
his stomach.
interaction, yeah, and being or having a pet worm that no one knew about and like
Mhm.
sitting there whispering to it like I would have had we been able to play like for endless hours, and Bill would have been sitting there being like, "What the hell is he doing?" And I'd have been like, "Nothing." But I think it
Nothing.
was Bill that almost caught me like gathering the worm,
Pro-
which
My memory is terrible, especially at
yeah,
like
so is
live
mine.
games.
Like, that's the other reason of why I have to make so many notes, and you're gonna hear the paper tear because the tape didn't come off this time.
What's
Now
up,
I get to
Charles?
reach it.
Just saying hi to Charles in the chat.
Okay. What's up, Charles? This is so cool having people, like, in the chat, like, I most of my views come after the fact,
Uh huh. It's well,
and
I mentioned it in my Discord in the Grim Place Discord, and
I
we've
gotta
got some
join that
awesome
one too.
Legionnaires.
I am a horrible Discorder, though.
Uh huh.
Unless someone tags me in something, I'm usually not on there.
Right. Well, like I'm in my Discord because that's where I need
Your
to be,
thing, right.
But same thing with other people's Discords. I'm only in there if somebody tags me or if I'm randomly trying to get caught up. But there's just only so many hours in the day.
I have one word revealed on my third sheet of talking points, and I can't believe I almost forgot this. Dude, you were in Forbes.
Yes, yes. Just recently, Rob Weiland posted an article on Plunderlust in Forbes. It was pretty rad. I mean, it's you try and tell your relatives what you do. You make games where people are playing make believe, sitting around a table, or they're flying around space by playing these card games and being space pirates and Wurms and all this stuff, and they don't really get it. But then when you say that, there was just an article about my game in Forbes and it's got me quoted, and all of a sudden there is, not that it wasn't valid before, but there's something that they can then associate with it and realize, like, shit, this is a real tangible thing. Like, even though Vast Grimm had already been like published in Italian, it had been published in Spanish, big things that, like, it's just, mind boggling, like seeing that recognition of a name like Forbes is a big deal to non-gamers.
Well, for non-gamers, it normalizes it, for lack
Right.
of a better term. It's like they'll be flipping through Forbes and be like, where you're saying, I totally get what you're talking about, because like I worked in the disc golf industry for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to explain to everybody what disc golf was. And
Right.
I'd be like, it's the fastest growing sport you've never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And people would be like, well, what do you mean it's the fastest growing sport? Well, there's like tens of thousands of people playing it. You just don't know about it because it's in the woods. And then I
Just
ended
like
up
my cult
being,
ceremonies, right?
yeah, we weren't supposed to talk about those. But then Maine ended up hosting the 2016 US Women's Championship. And all of a sudden, everybody and their mother knew what disc golf was around here.
Nice.
And it was like, wait a minute. Well, this isn't fun anymore because it's not fringy. It's like,
No, the more people that play, the better, the more people you can get that are genuinely excited about it. I mean, that's one of the things I love about D&D, even though I don't play traditional Dungeons and Dragons anymore. It brings so many people into the hobby that those people are going to overflow into the weird, bizarre games that I like to play and make.
yep. It's like the perfect gateway game.
Yep.
We'll call it that instead of what
I mean,
usually
it's
call
like
it,
it's
because
the
we're on
Xerox.
during the day.
Right?
Yeah.
The Xerox or the Kleenex. It's like, it's what people know as, playing make believe.
Yeah. And it's so weird to me because, like, I don't know if we talked about this at Granite State, but I got out of gaming for about 10 years when my brother passed away in 2003. And, excuse me, and no one knew what the hell Dungeons and Dragons was, minus the Satanic Panic back
Sure.
in like the early 2000s and late 90s when I was really into it. And back in the 80s, of course, it was kind of big because of TSR, but like now it's like you can't go anywhere without seeing something D&D related. And it's like,
It's a
what
beautiful
the
time.
ever living is like going on here, that like Stewie that works at the hardware store that's 100 years old knows what D&D is. And it's
Yep.
like, it's so cool. Like, I have the opposite reaction with gaming that I did with disc golf, because that was part of the reason I got out of it. It wasn't cool enough anymore. It was being fringy, and I'm like, yeah, I did my job. People know about it now. I'm out.
Nice.
And now when I got back into gaming, like, I'm like, holy shit. Where, like, you would go to the game store on a Saturday afternoon where 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you would go to the game store and you'd have like maybe 8 or 10 people hanging out at the game store playing games. They'd look at you weird when you walked in and whatnot. And now you go to the game store on a Saturday and it's like walking into a mini con.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's
There's
just
lots
like,
of people always playing.
it just blows my mind. And now we're getting into Forbes.
Well, and to be fair, Rob Weiland, who writes all the articles for Forbes on the gaming stuff, he is a huge gamer. He's written for a number of games. He's got the Mind's Eye Players actual play that he does out in Minneapolis. And he's written for a number of he's written a number of RPGs on his own of his own. He's been covering articles across a number of channels for quite a number of years.
But I think it's so cool that like an indie game is
Yes.
in Forbes, you know, and it's like it's like hard to fight the urge of like we're not fringy anymore. I got to get out of here.
Now, you know,
But no,
power
for
nerds.
me, indie games are where the heart of the gaming world is.
Yes.
You know, it's like when I got back into gaming, it was 2015, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of DCC, me seeing the book, but my first thing playing was 5e.
Yep.
All my buddies were playing like a West Marches style campaign on
Sure.
Discord, and they're like, why don't you come play with us? And had the most tragic event. My brother in the game died, and I'm like, what the ever living shit is going on here? He got killed fighting a giant, like mutated Thomas the Train. Of all things.
Sounds like a good way to go. I mean,
it was, and it's like I just got lucky enough to dodge on my next to last turn, and then like and then I attacked. I think I crit and I killed the tank engine by 1 hit point.
You had to avenge the
yeah. Oh, that's what I did. I'm like, I don't even remember how I reacted, but I was kind of thrown off, to be honest, because it messed with me to have my brother in the game die.
I would imagine
the reason I got out of gaming was because of my brother dying, you know. Like, it's weird. I can actually talk about this now without crying, which is pretty cool. But like, you know, I know it would be games with Dave and Bob if he were still around, because, you know, I've got this picture. I could reach it, but it would make the camera angle weird of how I would have to stand up. It was one of the last pictures he drew of an adventuring party we had.
Oh,
and I've got it framed and hanging up on my wall. I'll have to shoot you a picture of it.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's like it's incomplete, you know, and it's one of those things that, oh, that's going to get me emotional. It's just one of those things that our game was incomplete. So,
it sounds like you had wonderful times gaming together over the years, though, which is
awesome.
You got to share that with your brother.
Yep. And, you know, he's with me every step of the way on this, because if I were to have a bracelet, it would be, what would Bob do on my bracelet, you know?
Awesome.
And like, I blackmailed him. I think I did tell you this, that I blackmailed him to get into playing in a D&D game that him and his friends and my dad were playing, because my mom wanted all the books out of the house because it was letting the devil in. And he's like, yeah, I threw him out. Don't worry about it. And I heard the telltale sound of dice hitting the table one night.
Yes.
And we used to have those old grates in the floor that were literally, you could close them or open them and look down through and see what was going on below. And I look down and I see like papers and dice and everything. And I'm like, I'm going to go see what they're doing. They woke me up, and I go down and I'm like, geez, it's going to be so sad kind of when Mom finds out about this. Obviously at like 6 or 7, it wasn't exactly like that, but they're like, Mom's not going to find out about this. And I'm like, oh, there's ways she can't, because they would never let me play with them. And then they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I want to play. And you could see my brother's reaction of like, oh my God, I don't want this little shit playing in my game, because he was 11 years older than I was.
Okay.
And I weaseled my way into playing with him and his friends and my dad behind my mom's back.
Nice.
And the rest is history. Like I was telling someone in a previous interview, we came up with a thermonuclear risk. I don't remember how exactly we played it, but we destroyed boards because we'd use push pins as the warheads.
Oh, that's funny.
And then, you know, you would take something like, say, I don't have it right in arm's reach. I've got this 25 millimeter D20 or 50 millimeter, and we'd take something to the equivalent of that when we'd fire the warhead and just drop it on the board, and whatever didn't go flying off the continents was what survived.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, it was just weird little shit like that. And
nice.
I've still got like a player's handbook over here from that era all taped up and everything that I'll just never let go of, because it's one of those things that, like, I've got to have,
Yeah.
that he's still there,
Awesome.
and but yeah, enough about that, because I do not want to get emotional for once talking about him. I
No,
mean, I find it
that's
completely
not.
acceptable, but
Yeah.
it's like it gets tiring
Sure.
getting emotional about that. But so anyway, what else are you up to besides Plunderlust? What else is going on? You said you have 4 new books coming out that I'm going to have to buy at PAX.
Yeah, so those were a backer kit campaign it was a few months back. That's it's got Skeleton Crew, which is like the bare bones edition. It has revised rules, and it's all just because the art in the books is so heavy. It makes it a lot easier for anybody that's visually impaired. We also have the let's see, No Safe Haven, which is a book that explores one of the locations in the universe is Marauder's Cryosphere, which is like an ice planet where people come and dock their ships. It's hive of scum and villainy, and explores. It goes into some new alien species that you can play. It's got some of the crime bosses and 2 of the spires. We've got
Nice.
a Grim Outlook, which is a 3-story arc adventure that takes people on. At the end of it, it's going to find a piece of the Gate of Infinite Stars to try and start building out a longer form campaign. And then the 3rd book is Helltrap Barges. Sorry, I have to look back because my brain is not clicking right. Helltrap Barges is a ever-shifting dungeon crawl in the waste barges of Kalar, which is like King Saul controls the waste barges, and it's basically there's some different factions in the book. People that live down in the lower areas of the waste barges, they want to revolt and overthrow the king, and then there's also lots of different ways, because the rooms can be rolled randomly to determine what is next, because in the waste barges things can push and shift.
Right.
It's got lots of replayability as well.
We actually avoided going to the waste barges
I
in
know.
the game that we played, and we went to it was an undead moon.
Yeah, one of Proxima. I think you went to
Proxima
Proxima
C.
B or C. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Proxima C, and what was the dude's name that we met? I can't remember his.
I don't know. I think I just made that up on the fly.
Oh, but it was great because he had the skull that talked to him and
Ah,
everything,
yes.
and I was just like, you would never have known you made that up right on the spot, dude. Holy cow, I can't believe that, because that's another thing with me. I mean, we're supposed to be talking about you, and I'm making this all about me.
We're just having
Um,
a conversation.
I like this is something I don't really talk about often, but I just don't give a crap anymore. I had a
Sure.
mental break back in 2018,
hmm
and ever since then I haven't GM'd a game since,
Okay.
because my confidence, like, it happened while I was GMing a game.
You're putting
And
that was putting way too much stress on what the game needed to be then, you know?
no, it was because of my job. And Charles actually says that you're a wizard behind the GM
Thank you,
screen for
Charles.
sure. My job at the time, I have a very hard time being away from home and hearth.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And I went away for a week for a work convention,
Yep.
and I didn't enjoy myself. And I came back, and there was a lot going on too that we can talk about after,
Sure.
that just culminated, and it all happened to kind of come to this roaring crescendo while I was running a game. And ever since then, like, my brain tells me that I'm a bad GM ever since that game, because of the break happening during the game. And it's the dumbest thing. Like, I mean, there's some validity to the thought process of the way
Sure.
my brain processes it, but the thought itself is just completely asinine.
Yeah.
Because all of my friends, I'm running a One Ring game from Free League starting in a couple weeks,
Uh-huh.
that I have done absolutely nothing for, because of that mental block that I have in my head, that it's going to be so weird to be sitting there on Discord with all my friends, and they're going to be like, "What are we doing?" And I'm just going to take basically the dice and be like, "All right, you see this thing in the distance and whatever." And
Sure.
I'm making myself go for it, because they're like, "Dude, you're," one of my friends has said that I was a Mercer level style GM.
Nice.
I'm like, well, you're insane because I'm not that good. And we got Bill Payne. What's up, Bill?
Hey, Bill.
How are you?
Thanks for joining.
But it's like, yeah, I've got to get over that block.
Yeah.
I want to
And
run Vast Grimm.
that's right. And if you're playing with friends, it should everybody's there to have a good time. It shouldn't be pressure for you as the GM or pressure for the players. It should be just like sitting around and hanging out,
Yeah, I'm definitely putting too much pressure, too much emphasis on the fact that I'm GMing.
Yeah.
Like I'm going out on the stage at PAX to GM
Right.
in front of like 30,000 people. No, it's me and 3 of my best friends playing a game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You need to treat yourself, or give yourself a break on that, and if you can. And,
it's like the one thing I haven't been able to like let go of, and it's the weirdest thing. We're going for Dave's therapy session number 1 with Brian today. But it's like there's so many games that I want to run, and like I want to stream games, and I think that's where I'm coming up with that weird ideation. I'm like, you can never stream games because you can't do this, Dave.
Well, I mean, streaming games also comes with a whole nother layer of complications, like me not being able to hear you earlier. Then it was my fault on the audio side. You have like all of that is then layered in when you're streaming games too. So like, there's lots of extra levels of anxiety that can come to to playing a game like that where you're streaming it. Definitely, I would get back in the comfort seat of just playing or running games.
Well, that's what we're doing. Have you watched any of our crime fighting luchadors games?
Nice. Yep.
I'm gonna pop up Charles. Charles says anxiety does some very unfair things to people, which is absolutely true.
Yep.
And he's got lots of people in his life who battle it. And he said props for getting through it every time it gets anyway. Well, thank you. I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw him bring up anxiety. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pop that up.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, I play a luchador that has the mask of the goat man. And what it does, I've completely modified how it works. But I'll sit there and I'll be like, this isn't so bad. And so I act like I'm part goat.
Right.
And now the big thing with the goat, I've taken it to where everyone's wondering if I'm a Russian sleeper agent, because it's set back in like the late 70s, early 80s thematically.
Nice.
And I'm having so much fun. But like you were saying, it's been kind of therapeutic of like, I've still got this, like, because I am definitely a frickin' ham for one. And I think it comes through in me being me in my interviews now that I'm just crazy in a great way, but
yes, in all the right ways.
Like I need more caffeine. I'm just pounding this monster.
I know. I need to try and figure out. I need to have a cutoff point for caffeine for me today, because I need to hit the road by like 5 tomorrow. So that means I should probably get up around 4. Before
I was up till 2 this morning. The night before, I was up until 3.
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm too old. I'm too old for that, Dave.
I'm the same age as you, but I'm just like, with everything I've got going on, with trying to get the 3D print business going, with trying to get the store going, trying to get the fulfillment business going.
Yep.
It's like the drive that I have pushing me every day is absolutely insane. And there are just days, even without caffeine, that I cannot turn it off.
Yeah, I get that. Usually, if my brain won't shut off at night, I go and I get on the couch and turn on like a movie that I'm super familiar with on a very low volume, so it'll drown out my brain.
See, I can't even do that. I tried doing that the other day, and ironically, I know I talked to you about the game I want to make. I decided to turn on Halloween, and it was the dumbest freaking thing I could have turned on, because I'm like, oh, well, I could add this into the game. I could add that into the game. What if I did this? And then it's like, instead of my brain slowing down, it
just amped
like
up.
I connected to a Tesla coil.
Yep.
And just, and yeah, I was done. And then I was up till 3 in the morning. And it's like, 7:30 rolls around, and Kim and I were like, all right, time to get up. She slept the whole night. And
Yep.
I'm like, and then I drank like 40 cans of Monster and some water and was up until 2 again. And I'll probably be up till 3 or 4 tonight because
Well,
I've
right
got
when you're
to
going to
interview
bed,
at 9.
I'll be heading out. I'll be like, see ya.
Nice. I'll shoot up a signal flare.
Excellent.
You can see if you can see it from down south.
Yep. I'll be heading. I'm gonna drive to Chicago. We're gonna head straight to like one of the highest rated deep dish pizza places in Chicago and pick up pizza and then head over to my friend Alan's house. So you met Alan, who was next to me at Granite State Comic Con, right?
Yes. Yep.
So he lives outside of Chicago, so we're gonna go there, spend the night there before continuing on to Madison the next morning.
Sick. Speaking of Alan, he is such a nice dude.
Oh, totally. Yep.
Like, I had so much fun talking to him. He's another person that I'll have to get on eventually.
You know what? You should have him on soon because he has a Kickstarter right now for his second art book.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, we'll have to chit chat and everything while you guys are. I'll bug him while you're out in Madison. I'll send him a message like, "Hey, Alan."
Cool. Yes.
Yeah, and then tonight I'm actually interviewing Al, who was at the table over Brian.
Yeah.
There, because I made so many connections there. It was so fun. And then my mind is still blown of what happened at that convention of like that I get to like host a panel next year.
It's awesome.
And I'm like this goofy bastard is exactly what I said, gets to run a panel. And I'm like, poor Doug doesn't realize what he's unleashing.
I'll let him know.
Like, you don't want that Dave guy doing that. He'll talk for hours. You're gonna have to allot him a double slot to be.
You're gonna need to have some enforcers come in 5 minutes beforehand to shut it down.
A shot caller or something.
Right.
So I'll be there and it'd be like, time to get out there. Oh crap! What else can we talk about? Because I'm having too much fun to just cut this off at this
awesome.
point.
Well, Bill in the chat said to have a safe trip to Madison and a great game haul. Thank you very much. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. We went last year, and this is my second year going, and my son went with me last year, and he's going again this year. So it's a good time.
Nice.
We got to play games in the evening, which is good. And John, who's a prominent member of our Discord, is coming in from California, and he's running Vast Grimm games. He's running games of my game, The Molt. And he's also running some Pirate Borg as well, which is cool.
Sick. Like, I wish I could go. I really hate the fact, and it's gonna sound really whiny to every like person out there, but that I had to get a freaking job.
Well, paying the bills is important. Right?
It is important, but it's like trying to get all the stuff going as anyone that's tried and everyone that's tried to start something like this knows. Like, I went all in this summer and for 3 months it worked. And then all of a sudden the speed of it just went, and I'm like, damn, I got to get a job. And I feel like I sound like some entitled little shit when I say that, but
I mean, when you're self-employed, you have to hustle all the time. There's no downtime. Like, there isn't really vacation because unless you're making it big, you're on vacation. If you're taking a break somewhere, you're still getting up before the rest of the family gets up and you're working on stuff. And you're probably working on stuff after everybody else goes to bed. It's just kind of, that's the nature of being an entrepreneur. And sometimes, like right now, while you had to take on work, hopefully that'll just make things a little easier for when things scale back up for you.
It is making things easier because, like, Kim's not as stressed out as she has been with like me being like the frog. What's the statement there? The frog bumping its ass every time it jumps. Like,
I'm not familiar with that one, but
there's a phrase like that of like, I'm just getting by or something. It's like a frog jumping and bumping its ass every time it jumps or something to that effect. Maybe someone in chat will know it, but it's like just barely making the jump. And that's what we spent the summer doing. And at least now with this, like I was telling you, like how the last week or two went, and I'm like, Well, at least it's allowing me to add more printers so that when things do ramp up,
Yep.
like I'll have those printers instead of being like, oh my God, I need more printers.
Right.
It's there because we're doing craft fairs. I don't know if I
Yeah,
told you that.
you did. Yeah.
And
I mean, now's the season for that. You know,
what's that?
now's the season for
Oh, I
craft.
thought you said announce the season, and I was going to be like, craft fair season's coming. Check them out. But yeah, and we started like doing projections last night of everything we've got to print. And like as much as I loathe having to spend 3 of my days a week, as whiny as I sound, I still think I sound whiny saying this, but like because it really throws a wrench in the gears of trying to get things going. Like you're saying, is like every hour is spent working on your business, and it's like I'm at work and I'm like, "Ugh." I've got that itch to pull out my laptop.
But you'll fall into the rhythm with that, hopefully, and figure out a good way to balance it. You know,
Yeah, stay up until 3 in the morning
right?
on my days off.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how I was like yesterday. I was reorganizing my months, like this month through February, of all the different projects I have to work on, and putting in timelines of when I have to work on certain things to be able to have the next project launch go well, to make sure that this gets to the printer on time so that it can get made and shipped, so that I can, when you're a small business in this industry, you have to try and make sure things line up so you're not pissing backers off by having too many things in manufacturing and still trying to launch another project, because you've got to keep the flow of money going at all times.
Yeah.
There's inevitably always going to be some sort of delay. Like there's a delay at the printer, or like there's a strike along the Eastern Seaboard that's throwing things off, and now things are getting shipped to the West Coast instead of the East Coast. There's always something that you can't account for, and just have to be as
nimble,
open and honest with the backers as you can, to let them know, communicate what's going on, and hope that they will continue to support your weird, crazy endeavors.
Dude, I don't see how anyone cannot support this. Like it is so awesome. I could laud the accolades onto you for hours about
That's
this
not
game,
necessary.
how much I love it. But no, I could, and I just like it that much, and that's like I can definitely foresee when I do get to streaming games of having like this background that we've got right now.
Awesome.
Or being like, hey Brian, I need you to make me a background or something.
Uh-huh.
And because I definitely want to stream it, because I think the game lends well to being streamed.
Yeah, totally.
Because of the like you were saying earlier, the way you like to Charles, I'm going to jump back to this because Charles said being a project management software nerd has to help keep it all straight. And that's something I don't have is project management software, which we were talking about before we went live. I have 4 steno pads laying around my house that are literally 20 pages to 30 pages deep on each one, with everything I've got to work on, that I've got to get something to manage my time.
I'm pretty sure Charles has heard me talk. We discussed when I switched to a new project management software, because I have been known to do that fairly regularly, especially when things get really like stressful and compounded. I find fault in my current project management software, and then switch over and spend time doing that instead of the stuff that I'm supposed to. And I'm pretty sure Charles has seen, like, I think this is the 3rd one that we've discussed in Discord over of software that I've switched to.
And I did want to say, if you need to get going, because I know you've got probably got a lot of stuff that you need to
there's still things I need to fold laundry and pack, and I need to continue working on my Patreon rewards. And I've got a list of things that have not been put in the ban yet, but most of the ban's ready to go. So
I will keep you on here all day if you let me. So if you need to go, just let me know.
Sure. Hey, how about you want to go till 2:25 or 2:30?
Sure. Yeah, that works.
You're East Coast, right? I'm not.
Yeah, I'm East Coast.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm up in the great state of Maine.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Another 10 to 15 minutes would be awesome.
That works. And then that way we can let all the awesome folks in the chat get back to their lives that are tired of listening to me whine about having to have a job.
Job.
But yeah, dude, like you've got so much stuff going on. It just like I know I could, but it seems impossible to manage even just Plunderlust to me.
Oh, Charles is in Maine too.
That's crazy. That is so crazy. We have to connect then because I'm in southern Maine, which is and I've always loved the term down east for Maine because it's actually northeast of me.
Nice.
But it's called down east. And maybe Charles can explain the down east naming of it because I've never understood like how up is down. It's like
well, I mean, it's down from somewhere, right?
from Canada. That's
maybe that's it.
Maybe it was when we were.
It's neither down nor east.
Yeah, because it's like it's hard to explain because like the way the state is shaped, it's not like it's way out to the east. It's almost directly north of me.
Weird.
And yeah, that's Maine for you because it's just Maine's weird.
I've not been. One day I will.
You should come up here. It is absolutely freaking beautiful up
Yes.
here. But like if you ever need like a mind clearing place, like you can in most areas of the state, you can walk 5 minutes outside of your door and be somewhere relaxing, be it the beach, the woods,
Nice.
or something. Like, you know, there's a reason that like Thoreau and all them loved Maine.
Sure.
And like, yeah, it is east, I guess, he says, but it's a long road to seemingly nowhere. Great scenic ride, which it is. Yeah, this you'll have to come up and you could explore both places like southern Maine because Portland, which is only about 20 minutes from me, is like a huge foodie area.
Nice.
And then down east is like all ocean, and unless I'm he's going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but if my geography of Maine is correct, which it's such a huge state that it's possible that it couldn't wrong, but you've got like Eastport, Maine, which is and all that, which is a lot of oceanic. Yeah, Boston, southern Maine is it's funny that you say he said it's called Boston North. I say southern Maine is a suburb of Boston.
Okay. I may make it up for PAX East this year. I need to look into pricing of that.
Well, if we weren't 2.5 hours from PAX East, I'd say you could crash here. But
yeah, that's
I'm probably gonna. If I go, I went in 2017 with my kid, and it was my very first con. And you want to talk about overwhelmed?
I may have been there that year. I don't remember what years I went. I went 2 years, and I was in Norse Foundry's booth at the time. With like I had some of my sculpture heads like on their like grid wall at the time. But yes, that's a very different convention. It's a very video game centric.
Yeah.
But apparently the tabletop side has grown significantly since the last time I was there.
We're taking over, baby.
That's right.
Watch out.
Watch out. I'm gonna throw some dice at you.
Yeah. Make a little, I'll 3D print a little like dice gun that shoots those little baby D6.
Nice.
We'll come up with something. Yeah, like it is really like Boston North, but heck, if we all decided us down easters and our southern Mainers to go, we could get something like an Airbnb and
nice
veg out and go hit PAX. That would be fun. So I only went for one day when I went, and I was like glad I only went for the one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw some gummy worms at them.
Yes. Infect them. I had actually at one point looked into custom packaging for gummy worms to make, Vast Grimm gummy worms, but it was too expensive.
Now this will show you the size of the state. He vacationed in Lubeck with whale research friends a few years ago. It took 9 hours to get there from central Vermont, which is Lubeck is north, up north in Maine, like right on the ocean, but or not on the ocean. I actually think it's more centralized if my navigation is correct. I'm a horrible Mainer. Sorry, everybody.
You're failing your
but
state.
I am. I'm just letting everybody down. Charles is probably sitting there in tears saying, "What is wrong with you?" But yeah, it is such a huge state. Like to get from the southern tip of Maine to the northern tip of Maine is like a 7 or 8 hour drive.
Oof. Yeah,
It's
that's a lot of state to drive through. I thought driving through Virginia going north was a long drive, driving like 5 hours through that.
oh 2 hours east of even me. Lubeck is coastal. Okay, so I was right the first time.
Nice. And I
And
like
then
the
Grim said, "Meanwhile, I'm in New Zealand going, dang, it's a 3 hour drive. I don't know if I want to do that."
one day I'll visit Trin in New Zealand, or
Oh,
maybe the PAX Australia. That would be fun.
PAX also would be awesome. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, and then Eric says it's like going from east west in PA. Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Back in my disc golf days, I spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania. And that was always one of the longest drives, was going from upstate New York home, because we'd travel through northern PA and cut across. And it seemed like it took a day to go from point A to point B there. Oh, man. Well, I will actually let you go because I feel like we've talked about a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm
And
going
you'll
to
have me
start.
back on in the future.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll see you again soon. And I've got to connect with Charles. And now I'm hyped up from our talk. So I'm going to go mess with my printers and
awesome.
all that good stuff.
Well, thanks for having me on. And thanks for
Thanks for
everybody in the
coming
chat.
on.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks everyone in the chat. And I'm excited to have a Mainer that actually jumped in here. That's so cool.
Awesome.
And I'm trying to think. I will see you next, I think,
PAX
at
Unplugged.
Yep. Is the soonest I will see you. And yeah, dude, have an awesome time at Gamehole.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good. It'll be good. I'm looking forward to it. I hope the next couple of weeks go well for you. And
thanks. And I hope everything goes well with you. And I hope this closes out strong and you hit the what was it, 35 you said you wanted to hit?
35 is the next bigger stretch goal. So
let's hit 50. Let's get the word out there, everybody in chat. Let's get him up to like 50, 55.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the last 2 days of Kickstarters usually go up pretty high. So I've got some extra special super sweet stretch goals in if we can keep things chugging along.
Well, I'm gonna have to like arm wrestle go to an arm wrestling competition that I'd lose, but
just gotta go over the top.
Yeah, I'll just turn my hat backwards and it's like turning my motor on, know.
Right.
And because I want to do the Become a Raider. I think that would be so cool.
Yes.
I'll make a really stupid face doing finger guns.
Yes.
And then be like, this is the picture you get to work with. And you'll be like, oh, Jesus, Dave.
Well, I can do some fun stuff in the computer.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Brian, thank you so much for coming on. And if you guys feel like it, tune in tonight at 9. I've got another interview coming up, and that's going to be another fun one that I've got to go read 2 books for right now. And and everyone have a great day. What's up, Pabu? How are you? We will catch you the next time. Have a good day. Oh, I'm on the wrong side of the camera. There we go.